Hey you guys, it looks like that extra unemployment benefit may be coming to an end. The Republicans are saying you guys need to get your behinds back to work. And if you are fortunate enough to still have a job, your boss David is probably giving you some extra work and you're thinking to yourself, you know what? They don't pay me enough for this. I need another job. Well, if that's the case, in order to start your job search, you need an attractive resume. So, in today's video, I'm going to give you some tips, some tricks, and the real tea on how to build an effective resume. Let's debrief. Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. You're tuned in to the Debrief with your girl, me, Nova. Welcome. And in today's video, we're going to do something a little bit different, okay? So, if you are a new subscriber or you're just visiting my channel, welcome. I'm hopeful you'll join the family. And if you are a returning subscriber, I'm hopeful that you'll watch this video. Listen, if it doesn't benefit you, tell your cousin Lisa, you know, the one that's always asking to borrow some money, that she needs to go ahead and watch this video. And your cousin Lil Ray, he need to get up off the couch and get himself a job. That's right. And in order to do that, you have to have an effective resume. So in today's video, we're going to talk a little bit about some tips, some tricks, and the real tea on how to have an attractive resume. Now you may be thinking, okay, well, what do you know about resumes? Well, I have years of experience in HR. I've dibbled and dabbled in all facets of HR, one of which was recruiting, and to incorporate recruiting, sourcing, interviewing, working with hiring managers, working through the applicant tracking system. So yeah, I know a little bit about resume building. So I want to be able to help you guys in this video, give you some tips, give you some tricks, give you the real on some things that you probably didn't think of. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so first things first, this video is for persons who are experienced professionals or persons who are just starting out, right? If you just graduated high school or you just graduated college, you can utilize these tips and tricks to start your job search, okay? So, okay, let me take a coffee break, honey. That's right, I have coffee today because we're on a serious tip, but we're gonna throw in some laughs and some giggles as well. Okay. First things first. One of the main questions that I'm always asked is, am I supposed to have a one-page resume or is it okay to have more than one page? And honestly, that answer is going to vary. If you put 6 recruiters in the same room and ask them questions with regard to building a resume, I guarantee you that each recruiter is going to have their own thoughts and opinions, okay? So it's really based upon you as the job seeker and what you're bringing to the table in terms of your work experience. So for my persons who are more experienced professionals who have held a few positions where there may be progression through the career, more than likely you're going to have enough information that's probably going to be more than one page. And for my persons who may not have enough work experience built up or established, you're probably just going to have one page. And that's okay, either way. But for my persons that have experience and may have more than one page of a resume, my first recommendation is to make sure that that first page is your selling point. You want to make sure that you grasp the recruiter and the hiring manager's attention, so much so that they want to read on and read more, okay? All right, now we're done with that. Let's move on to the actual resume structure itself, okay? So, formatted resume, yes. Having a formatted resume is really important because your information is very structured, it's very neat, it's very clean, polished, professional, and that really appeals to the recruiter or the hiring manager's eye. So I highly recommend having a formatted resume. You can find formatted resume templates easily by going into the Microsoft Word application. And if you don't have access to Microsoft Word, go on Google. Google is there for a reason. You can easily find various resume templates. So I highly suggest that you utilize a resume template to structure your document, okay? All right, now we already know that it's okay to have more than one page of a resume. We know that we want to start our resume off well structured. The next thing, now you're going to sit here and say, really, do we have to talk about this? The answer is yes, we do. Okay, I'm going to go over the order or the flow of the resume that I recommend. Now, you don't have to do this, but I am going to give you some food for thought to really make you sit and think on what I'm saying, okay? So, normally when you start your resume off, you see your name at the top of the resume. Okay, yes, I know it's an easy one, but there's a couple of things that I want to mention with regard to your name. Now, this is more so for my persons that are in my community, okay? We have some beautiful, eccentric names. There is nothing wrong with that, okay? But I also have to give you the real tea. Sometimes we want to be strategic when we are searching for a job, right? And when it comes to our name, if you are a person that has a name, what's considered urban, as they say, you want to be mindful of that, okay? So for example, if your name is, let's say, Shaquanda Harris, nothing wrong with that. And if your name really is Shaquanda, I hope you take no offense to this, but I'm just gonna keep it real with you, girl. Okay, so think about, you know, instead of Shaquanda Harris, maybe Sean Harris or Shauna Harris. And for my boy Jamarcus Smith, think about Marcus Smith. Now, I know you're probably looking at me saying, they can't discriminate against me. They can't discriminate against my name on a resume. Well, sis, how you gonna know if they never call you back? Listen, 2020 has been a year. We have seen so many things go on, and we've seen it on social media. We've seen the injustice that have taken place, the lives that have been lost, and, you know, the protests that are going on to fight for justice, for, you know, inequality and being equal. So, you know, if you see it in social media, okay, if you see that it's going on in the world, what makes you think that it doesn't go on in the workplace? There is a thing such as unconscious biasness that we really need to recognize and address. Now, I'm not saying it's right, okay, but you need a job. And your next job is probably going to be an increase, right? And so you have to play the game. Like they say, the game is meant to be played, not played on. So think strategically going into building your resume. It will help. All right, I said it. I got it out the way. Let's move on. Now, on top of having your name on a resume, of course, you're going to have your home address, your phone number, and your email. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I am going to highlight a couple of things. First things first, our email. Now, for my experienced professionals, I'm sure you already know this, but for my persons who may just be coming out of high school or college, something for you to note. lilrayray69@gmail.com is not going to cut it on a resume. Make sure that you have an email address that is appropriate. You don't know how many times I have seen some really interesting email address, and I'm not going to lie, that resume got put to the side. I'm just keeping it real. Keeping it real and trying to help you. Okay? All right. Phone number. Now, yes, nothing wrong with your phone number, but the voicemail is something that I want to address. You will have times where you're busy and you may not be able to catch a phone call that may be from a prospective employer. Nothing wrong with that. They'll leave a message. Trust me, they'll leave a voicemail. But make sure that your voicemail is appropriate, okay? You know, if you got some rap playing in the background on your voicemail, ain't nothing wrong with that. But you're trying to get a job and you don't want to turn a recruiter or a hiring manager off. So I'm going to suggest that you have an appropriate voicemail, and just think about it. Okay? All right. Home address. Now this is interesting. On a resume, you'll typically see someone's home address. You yourself may be, you may have listed your home address on your resume as well. Now, here's my recommendation on that. The only thing that the home address really does on a resume is it lets the recruiter or the hiring manager know, hey, you are a local candidate. You'll probably have no problem commuting to work, okay? But there's really no need to give your pinpoint location, right? Your street, your home address in terms of numbers, city, state, and zip code is really all you need. Think about it. Maybe you're not just applying online. Maybe you're going to career fairs. Maybe you're doing networking, right? And you're going to different events to try to sell yourself so you can find a position. There's nothing wrong with that. Networking is great, right? You can either network or not work. So I highly recommend networking. But think about it. You're passing your resume off to various persons, and yes, it's professional. You think nothing's going to happen, but I think, you know, with all the events that have taken place in 2020, anything's possible. So always err on the side of caution, right? You don't want everyone knowing where you physically live. Just the city, state, and zip code will do. And when you are applying online to numerous positions, you're entering a job application, which in essence will ask you for your home address. At least that way, when you're entering your information into a system, you know, the company's responsibility on their applicant tracking system is to protect the privacy of job applicants' personal information. So there's a little bit more security in that standpoint. You'll be able to fill out your home address. But for now, there's no need to have your entire home address on your resume, okay? All right. Now, we have got through the name, the home address, your phone number, your email. Now, let's go ahead and move forward with the actual resume itself. So, after that section, 9 times out of 10, you are going to see either A, an objective statement, or B, a professional summary, okay? Now, what's the difference between the two? When we think of an objective statement, we're thinking of a statement that focuses on you as the job seeker, right? So you'll probably see a statement is, my objective is to secure a career opportunity in electrical engineering that will utilize my skills and experience while making an immediate impact on the success of a company. That's okay, but I don't recommend that, okay? When you migrate over to a professional summary, now the focus is taken off of you and put more so on the company, right? You are stating, describing your experience, you're describing your skill set that will directly have an impact to the company's need, okay? Now, when you think of a professional summary, right? This is a statement of your relevant experience, skills, and your achievement. It's kind of like your elevator pitch, right? Your 30 seconds to really market yourself. All right, you're going to talk about you're a dynamic electrical engineering with in-depth experience in CAD design, in multiple industries such as oil and gas, manufacturing, and so forth. Project management professional utilizing X, Y, and Z skill. You get my drift. I'll give you an example so you can read what a professional summary looks like here. This is more appealing to the recruiter because you're summing up what you're bringing to the company, and you are allowing the recruiter and the hiring manager to get an idea of your experience wrapped up and how it will correlate to the position that they are recruiting for. So, I highly recommend professional summary. Do away with objective statement, okay? Because at the end of the day, your objective is to attain the job in which you apply to. So it's kind of like redundant in a way. It's just not really savvy. The only time where I would say an objective statement may be okay is if you're just starting out, right? If you just graduated college, or you just graduated high school, maybe. But even from a college standpoint, by the time you graduate, you should have had some internships under your belt that you can utilize what you've learned, your skills, your experience in a professional summary. So, recommend, highly stress professional summary. Now, I'll give you a trick, okay, when it comes to your professional summary. When you utilize keywords such as, in-depth experience in AutoCAD design or project management, or dynamic, accountant, the word dynamic, I would suggest that you bold those keywords. Why? Well, think about it. For every one position, okay, that you apply to, there's probably 100 to 200 applicants who've also applied to that same position. And for that one recruiter, okay, that's working on this requisition, as they call it, or position, they're probably sourcing for 3 other positions as well. So their time is limited. They may not have the opportunity to really sit there and read your resume verbatim. They may be in a position where they have to just scan quickly through resumes. Your bolded words in your professional summary are going to pop. They're going to stand out, and they're going to grab the recruiter's attention, okay? So in doing that, you may make it to the next pile. Hey, let me take a further look at this. And for my persons that have more than 1 page of a resume, this is very key. This is very helpful to allow the recruiter that opportunity to kind of catch those key words and, let me move your resume over here and put some time into going through page 1 or page 2 and even page 3 if you have it, okay? So, professional summary. Do not utilize an objective. We're all professionals here. We're all trying to land the next opportunity. We're trying to grow in our career. And honey, we're trying to grow in our salary. Okay? All right. Now, after your professional summary, typically you'll find your skills and capabilities, right? Now, these are typically bullet bullet words, right, in terms of your skill set. And when we think of skill set, we think of hard skills and we think of soft skills, okay? Hard skills are those abilities that are quantifiable or can be measured. You typically learn your hard skills from your education, from training, from apprenticeships, from internships, or from previous positions that you've held, right? So, for example, database management, electrical engineering, manufacturing technology, medical diagnostics, marketing research, social media marketing, right? Those are your hard skills. Now, when you think of your soft skills, these are your abilities that are not easily measurable, okay? You're not easily able to obtain those skills, right? Soft skills: collaborator, time management, innovative, team lead, supervisory experience, so forth, right? And when you think of both those skills, you want to balance those skill sets in the skills and capabilities section, right? Because if you ask a hiring manager, what do you prefer, hard skills or soft skills, they're going to tell you, hey, you know what? I'd probably like soft skills a little more than I like hard skills, because soft skills lets me know what type of employee you'll be, right? You'll be innovative. You'll be a collaborator, and that's what we need in this position. When it comes to the hard skills, I can train that person on that, right? So, and if you're a professional or a seasoned or experienced professional, having a combination of both is really ideal for an employer. So you want to easily balance the skill set, okay? All right, now I have given you examples of your skills, your capabilities. Next, after that, you'll typically flow into the actual work experience itself. Now, I'm gonna take a break because this section, we're gonna stay here for a few moments to really digress into the work experience. All right, so when it comes to your work experience, you'll typically find the position you've held, okay, the company you've worked for, and the dates that you've worked there, right? Now, you probably can't recall the start date of the job you had in 2015, but you may know the month, and that's okay. You can put January 2015 to October 2017. Nothing wrong with that. Date ranges are fine. When it comes to the responsibilities that you've held, I think often one of the biggest challenges that I find with persons who are trying to build their resume is the actual work experience itself. So if you cannot think back to every little thing that you've done, back in 2015 when you were, I don't know, an account analyst, helpful trick: always keep a copy of your job descriptions. And if you're no longer with the company, more than likely that position is still a position in that company. So go back and see if you can find old job descriptions for the position in which you occupied back in 2015. Those job descriptions are perfect examples of what your responsibilities were when you were in that position. Highly recommend utilizing your job descriptions, okay? All right, now, another tip. Let's say you've worked at 2 different employers and you held the exact same position, and maybe a couple of your responsibilities may have differed, but for the most part it was ideally the same. It's okay to combine. You can put, I worked at company X from January 2015 to October 2017. I worked at company Z from November 2017 to December 2019. The position I've held was a senior accounting analyst, and these were my responsibilities. And that way you kind of decrease the amount of words on a resume, right? Because you're not being redundant, because you did the same exact thing at both of these companies and now you're just combining it. So that's a helpful trick as well. One of the other things that I have to say that I see all the time when I help people out with their resumes, okay, if you're in the field of, I don't know, I'm going to say healthcare, right? You've been in healthcare for 5 years, but then you still have your experience on there from when you were a retail associate at Target. Girl, get it off your resume. Sir, you don't need it on your resume. Listen, when it comes to, oh, you know, I've been working since I was 16 years old. Okay, that is not related to the industry experience. So your work experience per se is separate or different from your industry experience. And at the level of the positions that you're applying for, maybe industry experience is what's most important. If I'm in oil and gas, I really don't care about your retail associate, experience. The only time where that could be considered per se is more than likely for entry-level positions, right? Positions, and you'll see it on a job description, where the only thing that's required is maybe 1 year of professional work and, you know, a high school diploma, maybe a bachelor's degree. And at that point, okay, that makes sense. You want to show the recruiter and the hiring manager that I do have work experience. But for the most part, when you get into your industry, that is the experience that's relevant. Okay. All right. I got that out the way. All right. We'll move on. So the next part of a resume to me is one that I really want to spend just a little bit more time on. That is going to be your education. Now, the first thing that you've noticed is I'm talking about education after I've already addressed work experience. There's a reason for that. When you see a resume, sometimes you'll see, you know, the name, the professional summary, and then you'll see education before you get into work experience. I recommend that you move education after work experience. Couple of reasons. First of all, sometimes, remember I talked about earlier, unconscious biasness, that still exists, right? Sometimes in your education, the college can play a role. How about that? Okay, so if you went to Southern University, or if you had the esteemed pleasure to go to Grambling State University, like myself, nothing wrong with that. That's great, right? But if we think about the person who's reviewing your resume, and we got 2 resumes, okay? They're starting off great. Their professional summary, love it. I'm interested. I want to know more, right? The next we get into education. All right, you know, Grambling State University and then Texas A&M. You never know who's reviewing your resume. The hiring manager may be looking at your resume, okay? And the hiring manager more than likely is not an HR professional, which means that, you know, they might not be so in tune from an HR compliance standpoint, right? And they may not recognize the unconscious biasness that can take place. But if this hiring manager just so happens to be an Aggie and he sees this, his money might be more on the person that went to Texas A&M. I'm not saying it's right, but why don't we impress them with our skills, our experience, our work experience first, grab their attention, and then say, yeah, I have a degree as well. Okay, so just a note. Now, there's another reason why I suggest keeping your education after your work experience. Now, when you put your education on there, you're typically going to put your college, the degree in which you received. Sometimes you'll see persons with a GPA. More than likely, you'll see persons indicate the date, or not maybe the date, but maybe the year that they graduated. Ugh. You guys, I cannot stress this enough. Do not put the year in which you graduated. The only thing that you need to state, I went to this college, okay? I went to, I obtained this degree. You may have more than one degree, and that's fine, but that's really all you need to put down. The reason why I say this, guys, we know that for my seasoned professionals, and when I say seasoned, I mean my persons who are older in terms of age. I like to refer to those professionals as seasoned. You can easily figure out how old someone is simply by indicating the date in which they graduate. Because we know that age discrimination it's a real thing in the workplace. Okay, I mean, seasoned professionals who may have been reduced or laid off, they will tell you it is really a challenge to find a position given their age, and that's real. It's unfortunate. I hate that sometimes that happens, but that's the truth. Okay, so you know, when you put the year on your education, someone can easily figure out how old you are. So yeah, keep the graduation date off of your resume. All right, so you have my thoughts on education and why we should, you know, maybe put it after the work experience. We really want the work experience to appeal, and then the education is just a bonus. Okay, all right. And if I didn't mention this already, for persons who just graduated and maybe they don't have work experience per se, they want to start with the education. In that standpoint, if you tell me you don't have any internships under your belt, and the only thing you have right now to get started in your industry is putting your education first, okay, in that standpoint, that makes sense. I'm okay with that, right? Again, we talked about it depends on what you bring to the table that's going to ultimately lead you to how you build and structure your resume. So after your education, the last part that you typically see on a resume is your software skills and your certifications. Okay, for software, you want to indicate, you know, software that you have experience in, right? Applications that you have experience in. A typical one is Microsoft Office. Make sure it's the latest version, right? Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Access Publisher. What is key is when you read through the job description, typically they'll have on there the software skills that they're looking for. So if you have that experience, make sure that it's also listed on your resume to make it more appealing to the recruiter and the hiring manager. And then if you have certifications, please list those. Those are important, okay? And those should go after your education. The last thing to know is the references upon request. Girl, take that off your resume. Why do you have that there? Seriously. When you fill out a job application, 9 times out of 10, they're going to ask you for your references. I mean, every professional should have references. Every recruiter and hiring manager will ask for those references. So there's really no need to have that little statement on your resume. Okay, so do away with that one. All right, so before I end my video, I want to give you my 5 tips. If you don't take anything else away from what we talked about today, please at least adhere to my 5 tips. They will help you out so much with building your resume and starting your job search, okay? The first tip number 1, always save your resume in a PDF format. Yes, when you apply for positions, always submit your resume in PDF format. The PDF is going to lock your information that you have, the flow, the structure, the format, the font, the sizing, the spacing. It is going to lock that in place, okay? When you submit your resume in Microsoft Word, it can be a challenge because it depends on the version in which you created the document. So for example, if you created your resume in Microsoft Word 2013, it depends on the company and what version of Microsoft they're utilizing. So if they're utilizing 2016 or later, when they pull your resume, it can come in distorted. Okay, the structure can be off, the spacing can be off, the bullets can be off, the sizing can be off, and I mean, that's really just not a professional look, okay? Always, always, always submit your resume in PDF format. The only time, honestly, that you may be asked to submit your resume in a Word document is typically when you're going through a staffing agency, okay? And that's because they're going to pull your information and they're going to put it on their letterhead because they're acting as an agent for you when they're talking to the clients that they work for and sourcing a position for you, okay? But other than that, PDF format, please. Tip number 2, guys, I cannot stress this enough. I tell people this all the time. Try to build your own resume, okay? I understand that sometimes it can be a challenge, right? And it's just easier if we ask someone who's experienced to build, to write a resume for us. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but see, here's where the problem comes in. Let's say that resume that was written for you is awesome and it lands you the interview. You get to the interview, and when they start asking you these questions and for you to walk through your resume, you can't speak to what's written in your resume. That is a clear indication for a recruiter or a hiring manager. I myself have sat and interviewed candidates and could clearly tell that they did not write this resume at all. And then what happens is you start to create doubt in the recruiter and the hiring manager's eyes. They're going to start to think, okay, wait, it doesn't sound like she or he wrote this resume. Do they really have this, experience? Did they really do these things at this, job? I don't know. And when you create doubt, you can pretty much kiss that opportunity goodbye, okay? So it's really important that you take the time to write your own resume. Now, I understand maybe it's just not for you. You are going to have someone do your resume for you, fine. But when that happens, make sure you really read what was written. Make sure that you can speak to those responsibilities that you have listed on your resume. Make sure you have examples to give when you're in the interview. I cannot stress that enough. Please, please, please try to take the time to write your own resume. Okay. Tip number 3, formatting, fonts, sizing, spacing. Guys, this is important. Make sure your resume is formatted. It's crisp, it's clean, it's cohesive. That is really attractive from the recruiter and hiring manager standpoint. Make sure your font is appropriate, okay? Listen, guys, I know that there's fancy fonts out there, okay, but we're not trying to create a fancy resume. We're trying to create a professional resume, an effective resume, a strategic resume, an attractive resume, okay? So do away with all the cursive and all the, the calligraphy type of fonts. Times New Roman, Courier New, Arial, all of those are appropriate fonts to use. Please use them. And then I also want you to think, if we look at the job market right now, the talent, the experience is younger, right? A lot of generation, what are we at now? Generation Y, I guess. X, D, whoever. The younger generation is coming into the workforce, right? And they're coming into these roles, in a recruiter's role, for example, right? So you submit this resume that has cursive writing, and you have this recruiter who doesn't know anything about cursive because they're no longer teaching cursive in school. They can't read this resume. They don't know what it says. And then your resume gets pushed to the side. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you a little tea, a little insight. Do away with the fancy font, okay? When it comes to your sizing of the font, guys, 12 point font, that's really all you need. Seriously, the only time you can go a little bit larger in the font is if you want to highlight the company you work for or the position that you've held. That makes sense. But guys, and you know, if you have more work experience, don't try to cram everything on one page and reduce the font. That's really harsh on the eyes. No recruiter, no hiring manager, no HR, you know, business partner wants to squint their eyes to read what's on your resume. I will toss that resume to the side. Sorry, it's the honest truth. It's the honest truth. Appropriate sizing, please. Appropriate sizing. Spacing. Make sure that, you know, your words are not all jam-packed together. You want to have appropriate spacing, right? When you know, after your name, your address, your email, you know, then you have your professional summary, then you have your work experience, your skills, your capabilities. You want to make sure that there's appropriate spacing, the utilization of bullet points. You want it to be cohesive. So that matters, okay? All right. Tip number 4, guys, make sure when you're reading these job descriptions that you're not just firing off your resume. I know, I've been there, I've done it myself, but it's really important to read through the job description and identify keywords, okay? And we'll talk about that on point number 5. But you want to look through that job description, you want to look back at your resume, and you want to tweak your resume accordingly, right? So if they're looking for someone that has supervisory skills, that can lead a team of 5, and on your resume you've held nothing but, you know, individual contributor roles, there's nothing mentioned on your resume about supervisory skills, more than likely your resume is going to get tossed to the side. So it's really important to look through the job description and tweak your resume accordingly so your resume will appeal to the hiring manager or recruiter, okay? All right, now for tip number 5, this is an important one right here, okay? Key words through your resume. We talked earlier about the professional summary and taking some of those key words and bolding those words so it really stands out to the recruiter. But you want to make sure you have key words throughout your resume. They don't have to be bolded or anything like that. But think about it. If you read a job description, they're looking for someone that's innovative, that's a collaborator, that has analytical skills, that has experience in SAP. You want to make sure that those key words are in your resume. Why? Have you ever applied to a position and like 4 hours later you get the thanks but no thanks email, and you're like, dang, did they even read my resume? The answer is no, they didn't. Why? So I talked a little bit earlier about for every one position, you have like 200 to 500 applicants. Do you think a recruiter really has time to go through all 500 resumes? No. Their applicant tracking recruiting system is doing it for them. That's right. Sometimes there is a system that is scanning resumes before it even passes over to the recruiter. And that system is going to be scanning for keywords that they are looking for in terms of that position. And if that system cannot pick up on those keywords on your resume, you just make it into the thanks but no thanks pile. So it's important to do that. I mean, look at the big Fortune 500 companies, the Exxons of the world, you know, the Chase Banks and Capital One Banks of the world, right? For every one position that's posted, there's literally like 500 candidates. They have those applicant tracking systems, those recruitment systems that help their hiring team, right? That help the recruiter. So for this one position, that system may limit, may scan through all 500 resumes, and then like the top 50, 25 make it to the recruiter. Okay, so it's really a trick to make sure that you have those keywords in your resume that really help you make it to the next step in the hiring process. All right, I have talked to you about my top 5 tips. I hope you found them useful. I'm really hopeful that in today's video it benefits someone. If not you, it could benefit your cousin Lisa, your homeboy Lil Ray Ray. Hey, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share if you care. Hit that notification bell so you'll always know when I'm uploading. And other than that, guys, I will see you on the next video. Bye.